All right, so we're going to start chapter 4. The next unit covers chapters 4, 5, and 6. So we are going to be going on this. It probably wouldn't be a bad idea as we go through this section for you guys to have your book out, because we're going to be referencing a lot because they have some charts and graphs in your book. The page that we're going to be referring to frequently at the end of this discussion is page 63. So we're going to try to repeat that chart. Eventually we'll be talking more and more about that, but if you want if you wanted to have that with you, you could. But chapter 4 overall just kind of deals with the workings of the national economy, like how economy kind of actually even works, how things are moving through the economy from start to finish. And one of the things that they talk about with this is something called a circular flow model. Now, circular meaning it goes in cycles. Economies always go in cycles, and then a flow meaning there is an actual flow that goes along with this. And model is just kind of how they present it to you, the information to you. So there's two main components of the circular flow model. You have what we call households, and you also have businesses. So the two main parts, the first one is households. Households, what they do is households actually create something called a consumption expenditures. It's the total of all household spending, basically meaning what you spend your money on, what your family spends your money on. So right now during this coronavirus thing, you guys have probably went out and gotten a lot of groceries. So all of those groceries would be considered consumption expenditures. You guys have probably upped your Netflix subscription, Hulu, Disney Plus. Those things are also considered consumption expenditures. If you guys go get clothes or supplies, anything that your family spends their money on, you go out to dinner to support that small local restaurant that you want to stay open. That would be part of your consumption expenditures. In households, we're just talking about everyday people. It could be wealthy, it could be poor, it could be upper middle class, lower middle class. That's what we're talking about when we get to households. And when we're talking about this, you're basically looking at stuff you buy from businesses. This is why everybody's kind of panicking right now, and probably rightfully so. If the businesses do not have people buying stuff and supplies from them, then they can't pay their employees. If they can't pay their employees, then they have to fire them. And then if they have to fire them, then they still continue to lose money. They might have to close the business down. Now, you're looking at this like, okay, how does this kind of flow? Well, again, think of it like this. If you're the worker at Home Depot and Home Depot closes, then now you don't get a paycheck, which means you can't go to Meijer to go buy food. And if you can't go to Meijer to buy food, that's one less person that's buying food from Meijer. So that's kind of what we're talking about with this circular flow model. It does kind of have a flow to it. But it is stuff that you buy from businesses. And again, this could be a large business, this could be small business, any business. The second main part is businesses itself, as we've kind of already started on. And businesses produce goods and services. Hopefully you guys remember from chapters 1 through 3 what the difference is between a good and service. But just in case you were not paying attention, the difference between a good and service is this. A good would be seasoning salt. A good would be bananas. A good would be a t-shirt. A good would be shoes. So it's a tangible object that has a measurable lifespan. A service would be a doctor helping you, an eye doctor helping you decide on if you need contacts or glasses, a lawyer helping you with legal issues, a psychiatrist helping you with mental issues, those type of things, a mechanic, a baker baking you a tangible good, but they're baking it for you. That's a service. And so businesses produce goods and services. And one of the terms that we use with this is GNP, also known as, and you do need to know this, gross national product. This is all goods and services that businesses produce and sell. The total amount of goods the total amount that a business would produce and sell. So you're talking about all the businesses in the country. Everything that they produce goes into our GNP. And so when McDonald's isn't producing any more food, when lawn mowing businesses are shutting down, when t-shirt companies are shutting down, when grocery stores are shutting down, That all hinders our GNP because it is dealing with all of the goods and services that businesses produce and sell to the households. The reason why these two are so important and are the main parts of the circular flow model is because it's dealing with everyday things. Think about this. Now that all of these places are closed down, you're like, oh, we want to go here. Oh, well, we can't. We can't go to the movies. Or we can't go to, I'm trying to think of some other businesses that have, kind of closed down. Can't go to sporting events. You can't go to, go to Old Navy, or you can't go to, I don't even know if you guys shop at Old Navy. That's where I shop because it's cheap. But you can't go to these places. And so if those places close down, it does hinder our nation's GNP. You want a higher GNP if you are a nation because it means that your country is producing a lot of goods and services that people would want. The higher the GNP, the better the economy. So let's talk about some give and take, meaning, you know, households are going to give something to businesses and they're also going to take something back from them. Okay, so you kind of give and take. So it's kind of how you work in like a marriage. There's certain things that drive you crazy about the person, but you kind of pick and choose your fights. You give and take a little bit. I might not particularly like Wendy's, but if my wife likes Wendy's, you know what we do? We go to Wendy's every once in a while and I deal with it. There's some give and take, but I like Famous Dave's. She doesn't really like it, so there's times that we go to Famous Dave's because that's what you do in a marriage. You compromise and you give and take things, and that's kind of how households and businesses work. So here we go. Households offer to the businesses factors of production. Now, if you're looking for where this chart is, if you guys have your book, go to page 54, and or I'm sorry, 55. And households offer to the businesses factors of production and consumption expenditures. Factors of production, okay, and consumption expenditures. They're kind of the same thing. So, as we talked about earlier, total of all household spending, but here are the 4 factors of production. The first thing that households offer to businesses are natural resources that go into the product. The land. Most people own land, and a business might purchase a plot of land from an individual to build on it. And that's kind of what we're talking about. And land doesn't mean just the property, it can mean all the natural resources that actually go into the product. It could mean oil, it could be strawberries, it could be whatever. But we're talking about all the natural resources that go into building a product, and you buy that from an individual. If your family were to start a business, they would go there and they would buy land from an individual to actually start a business on. The next thing is labor. That's all human effort that goes into the product. Now, the reason why I have mental or physical there is because human effort isn't just mental. We always think of human effort as, I guess, physical, but it doesn't have to be that way. It could be you sitting down and planning and figuring things out and drawing up plans. And so it's the mental part of all of this. And so land and labor are 2 things that households give to businesses. We give, when you're producing a product for Meyer, let's say you're working on an assembly line for General Motors, you are using physical effort to actually produce that for the business, but you are part of the household. Financial capital. Financial capital is just a fancy word for money. It's money that is given from households to businesses. The reason why Apple stays open is because you guys all have iPhones. The reason why Chick-fil-A stays open is because you guys drive to Okemos or you guys drive to Somerset to, purchase their unbelievably good spicy chicken sandwich. And so the money that is given from households and businesses, it's financial capital. We keep places open by spending money there. And if you don't spend money there, then you're not going to then that place isn't going to make any money, and they're going to shut down. Case in point, there's a theater that is behind the Genesee Valley Mall, and it's shut down. And it's like off of Lennon and Lennon Road, and I can't remember. I think it's Dutcher, if I remember correctly. And it's an old building, and it was a theater, and it was a cheap theater. But that cheap theater couldn't stay in business. It was kind of tucked in there, kind of had some crime and that type of stuff. But when people stopped spending money, the place had to close down. And that's what people are dealing with this coronavirus right now, is some of these businesses. I mean, you think about like landscaping businesses could go under. You think about like lawn mowing businesses could go under. There are certain businesses that are not going to be able to stay open because, you know why? They don't have money that's given from households to businesses to stay open. And then lastly, the other thing that the households give to businesses are entrepreneurship. Big fancy word for this. It's a person who creatively combines natural resources, human labor, and financial capital in unique ways to develop new and useful products and services. Now, it could be a new product. So think about this. When the person who came up with the first idea for Cheez-Its, Mr. Cheez-It, that's what we'll call him for sake of argument, when he came up with this, he was an entrepreneur. He sold it to the company called Sunshine, and they said, "We're going to make a unbelievably good cheese cracker that's going to taste salty and cheesy at the same time and is going to be delicious." And he's an entrepreneur. I think of this. We have friends that one of the businesses that they got involved in was you pay them to hang your Christmas lights and take them down. That's an entrepreneur. They're looking at something like, okay, normal people don't really want to do this. We'll do this. They're providing a service for someone. They're an entrepreneur. If you start a new business, you think about like Starbucks and kind of going to the small or the coffee shop that you can produce coffee in a quick way. That is an entrepreneur. Whoever came up with the idea of Starbucks was an entrepreneur. Whoever came up with the idea of a Keurig coffee maker, like one of those one cup coffee makers, said, you know what? Not everybody wants to have a huge pot of coffee. They just want a cup. So let's come up with those Keurig coffee makers. The idea behind the DVR, those are all people who are entrepreneurs saying, let's try this product. And guess what? There's plenty of entrepreneurs out there that have failed, but there's also a lot of entrepreneurs out there that came up with something really good. This is where I love that TV show Shark Tank. These are people who are entrepreneurs. They're creatively combining resources, human labor, and capital in unique ways to develop new and useful products and services to everybody. And that's what an entrepreneur would truly, truly take advantage of. So, again, what are the things that the households give to businesses? They're called factors of production or consumption expenditures. And the factors of production are land, labor, financial capital, and entrepreneurship. All right, number 2, businesses offer factor payments to households. We will stop here and pick this up tomorrow, but this kind of at least gets you underway to kind of understand what we're talking about. Don't forget about your terms over chapter 4. Be due soon. Make sure you check that assignment on your class stream on Google Classroom. As always, if you have any questions, contact me.